Namaste and good evening. Let's start with the prayers. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now we'll chant Mahamrutyunjaya mantra 3 times to pray for those who are in distress and suffering. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Eva Bandhana Mrityor Mukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Eva Bandhana Mrityor Mukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhana Mrityor Mukshiyamamrutat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone. Today we are starting the class number 28. And we already started Uttarakanda, the last chapter, in the last class. And we'll continue in that. This chapter is the epilogue and it has a lot of beautiful spiritual teachings. The main story kind of ends at the start of this chapter, you can say at the end of last chapter, but this one continues with some spiritual teachings as well as some other stories which are not directly connected to the main story of Lord Rama. So we saw Lord Rama returns to Ayodhya, he meets Bharata, his guru, mothers, everybody out there. Everybody is extremely happy to have Lord Rama back into Ayodhya. And with that, there was a proposal by Guru Vasishtha that Lord Rama be coronated, and that coronation ceremony also happened. So Lord Rama now becomes the king, and all the monkeys who had come with him, who wanted to accompany him to see his coronation, like Sugriva, Bibhishana, Angada, Jamvanta, Hanuman, they all stayed there, they all enjoyed, they had spent a lot of time, like 6 months past, and they were not thinking of even their families, their homes, their kingdoms. So finally Lord Rama sent them back, he saw them off, gave them gifts. Angada really wanted to stay back, but Lord Rama doesn't allow him to stay back. Hanumanji, however, requested Sugriva that he wants to stay back and will come and see Sugriva later on. And Sugriva said, you anyway are completely devoted to Lord Rama. There is nothing in your life other than Lord Rama, so you don't need to come back. You stay here and serve your Lord. And Hanumanji was very happy. He was accepted by Lord Rama. And Hanumanji never separated from Lord Rama. His passion was to serve Lord Rama, to do his work, to tell his tales as well as to listen his tales. So it is said, not right now, but at some point of time, that that's the boon Hanumanji asked when Lord Rama was going to his own abode, giving up his body. He wanted Hanumanji that you ask me a boon. And Hanumanji said, I only have one boon, that on the earth till your name is there, I want to be present in everywhere people are discussing your tales, chanting your name. I want to be present there. So that's the boon Hanumanji. That's why it is said that Hanumanji is still living even till today, and he is present in all the places where the story of Lord Rama is told. Then we saw some description of Rama-Rajya, the kingdom, the governance of Lord Rama. So it is said that everybody became extremely happy in his kingdom, and all the sorrows were gone. There was no enmity. No one bore any enmity towards anybody else. All harmony prevailed and disharmony gone. Then this word, Daihika Devika Bhautika Tapa, Rama-Rajya nahi kahu hi vyapa. Very famous quote from Manas. Dehik means, Deha means body. So Dehika means related to body. So any bodily afflictions, they were not there in the... So three types of afflictions are there which torment a human being. So Dehika, Deha means body, so related to body. Daivika, Deva means from the divine source, from the unseen source. It also means prarabdha, which is unseen. So the troubles which are coming from unseen sources. So for example, Dehika, the bodily afflictions are clear, like all the diseases, etc. They are bodily afflictions. Daivika, Deva is the divine or the prarabdha or unseen. So it is like earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, even the epidemic. You cannot necessarily give the source of these afflictions either to yourself or to somebody else. So these afflictions, therefore, are considered a divine in nature, that is Daivika. Bhautika is coming from the word Bhuta. Bhuta means living being. So all the other living beings. So we all know that, of course, we can have the troubles from other human beings, but also from other living beings like mosquitoes, animals, etc. So human afflictions in a very broad category can be defined coming from one of these three sources. So the problems which I create on my own, Daihika, bodily or my own, like my own self, I'm creating the problems for me. Others are creating the problem for me, Bhautika, and Daivika, the unforeseen source, unseen sources are creating the problems for me. So Daihika, Daivika, Bhautika, Tapa, all these three types of afflictions, they were absent in the Rama-Rajya, the kingdom of Lord Rama. There is another way. The Tulsidas, the poet, has defined the afflictions. So he has said, Kala karma swabhava gun krita dukh kahu hi nahi. Kala means time, karma means action, swabhava means nature, and guna means the three gunas of Prakriti. So this is another way to look at how people get sorrows. So Kala, everything, time. That means everything happens in time. Depending upon the time, people are happy, unhappy. So time can be thought of in various ways. Time, say for example, time is the childhood, the youthfulness, old age, that clearly depends upon time. Time is also the time of the year. So, summer, spring, winter. Some people are happy in sometimes, some people are not happy in sometimes. Generally, the old age is always a source of problems. But sometimes even the youthful stage can be a problem. Kala also means any other variations of time which can cause the problem. Karma, the action, the karma I perform, they will give its own fruit, the problems because of that. And we all face those in our lives. Swabhava, this is the nature or habit in that sense. So one acquires a certain nature and because of which one is motivated. So one may develop a fondness of sweets and may find it difficult to resist or may find it extremely difficult or painful if he is devoid of sweets because of, say, diabetes. So that kind of sorrow, which is coming because of swabhava, because of I have developed certain disposition towards something. And guna, there are three gunas of nature, prakriti: sattva-guna, rajoguna, tamoguna. It is said that all the variations in the whole universe is an admixture of these three gunas. So any kind of things which are happening because of these three gunas. And generally when somebody is in rajoguna and tamoguna, then there is a sorrow and suffering. In sattva-guna, there is joy and happiness. So source of all sorrows have been described variously as kala, karma, swabhava, guna. Different philosophers have defined them differently. Some people say kala alone, time alone is the source of all the difficulties. In time one attains sorrow, in time one attains happiness. Some other people have said that it's because of karma. Whatever I do, so do I face the results of. Some people say it's all swabhava, how my nature is, because that motivates me to do karma, and because of that one suffer or doesn't suffer. Guna or swabhava also means that my mind is reacting to something. So not everybody's mind reacts to everything equivalently. So that is also swabhava, how my mind is reacting. Guna, of course, it is a very generic, because everything is made of sattva-guna, rajoguna, tamoguna. And rajoguna and tamoguna, there are elements of sorrow and suffering. So poet here says that none of these sources caused any sorrows in the reign of Lord Rama. Everybody was having love for each other. They all were following their own duties as prescribed by the scriptures. So there is quite a big description of Rama-Rajya, what the kingdom of Rama is, and an ideal administration today also in India, generally they compare to Rama-Rajya. Then poet is also describing a little bit more about Rama-Rajya, that Lord Rama is the sovereign king of the whole earth, surrounded by all oceans. But describing him like this, it is not like that you are telling something great about him. It is more like degrading him, because he is the one by whose wish countless universes come into being and go from existence every moment. So to say that he is the sovereign king of the whole earth, whole world, is really nothing much to say about him. It is something like, somebody told me this example, that somebody, let's say, emperor of a very huge kingdom, very prosperous kingdom, but he is also maybe a president of a local football club. And if he comes somewhere, if he goes into some function and somebody introduces him that he is the president of this local football club, instead of saying that he is the emperor of the whole earth, that it would be something like this. So the poet further is describing that everybody was very benevolent in the kingdom of Rama. Everybody is trying to find the ways that how can they help others, how can they serve others. They all have the desire to serve the saints and sages. And all the men, they were only married to one woman and they were devoted to her. This is important because that was the time that when the custom of multiple wives was common. So, because Lord Rama himself followed this practice, that he will not have more than one wife. He was totally devoted to Mother Sita. In his kingdom, following the ways of the king, others also followed his ways, and they were having one wife and they were dedicated to her. On the other hand, all the women, they were also devoted to their husbands. Then poet further describes that how the things were in the kingdom of Lord Rama. It's not just about people, even it's about nature. So because when Lord himself is there, nature naturally follows the ways of the Lord. So all the trees, they were always bearing the fruits. The natural enmity even between the animals, that was gone. So not just among the people, but even among the animals. So for example, generally elephants are afraid of lions. They were living together. And similarly, many other like dog and cat and those kind of animals which have some natural, or cat and mouse, you can say, they have some natural enmity. They were also living together. And all the animals, they were feeling completely fearless from other animals as well as from human beings. And they were roaming around very freely without any fear. Neither having fear, nor causing anybody else fear. The cool wind was blowing with fragrance from the forest and the flowering trees. Lord himself performed the different sacrifices which are prescribed for a householder and for a king. All the brothers of Lord Rama, they were all having that tremendous love for Lord Rama, which is difficult to describe. And their devotion and love towards Lord Rama was increasing day by day. They would always be looking at the face of the Lord, that maybe if Lord will give us some opportunity to serve. And it is there were two sons born of Mother Sita, Lava and Kusha. Similarly, other brothers also had two sons each. And here Tulsidas ji is saying that indeed one who is playing the role of human being as Lord Rama, he is indeed the same Lord whom scriptures describe as beyond knowable, beyond the speech, beyond the senses, beyond the birth and death, beyond any maya, beyond the mind. He is in the form of Sachidananda. So the same Brahman has taken the form of a human being as Lord Rama. even the lot of saints and sages who were completely detached from all the worldly affairs, they would not go anywhere just to have because Lord was there, they would again and again visit Ayodhya. And when they visit Ayodhya, when they see the city, when they see the divinity manifest there within, the Lord himself and as well as all the other people, their mind will be attracted towards, as so to speak, city life from their detached way of life. And how the people were living very pious lives. They were putting a lot of efforts to plant a flower garden of different varieties in such a way that there were always flowers of different kinds in different seasons, that it always would look like as if flowering is because of the spring season. The markets were such that all sort of prosperous things, all sort of expensive things were available, and people could just have them. Nobody was poor enough not to have them. And it is saying that how can you describe the prosperity of the place where Lord himself is ruling? Even the river, there is a river called Saryu, which is even today it's available to see, like when somebody visits Ayodhya. So Ayodhya is a place which is not only in the books, but it's actual place even today in India. There is a great Rama temple being built. As I'm talking to you, there is already a temple construction of Lord Rama, the very grand scale in place, in process right now. So in that place, there are a lot of temples already, but this particular temple is also being built. There is a river called Saryu. This is in the north direction of Ayodhya. So it is said that that river was in the time of Lord Rama. It was flowing with its water completely pure and clean. And there was no trace of mud on the banks of the river. And there were many beautiful places along the river where people could go comfortably and take bath. In India, it's a tradition to go to holy rivers and take bath. So Saryu is considered a holy river, considering that it's associated with Ayodhya. And people, they were always singing the glories of Lord Rama. Even when they are talking to each other, they are talking about Lord Rama, his glories, his plays. The children are playing, their plays are based upon the life and plays of Lord Rama. So there is a custom in India which is called Ramalila. So typically during October time, September-October time, there is a festival called Vijayadashmi. So around that time in India, there is a tradition in many of the cities, there would be plays based upon Lord Rama. So this is like a stage play where some stage actors, they would enact the whole life of Lord Rama. And it's very popular. And even at that time, people were doing that kind of thing in Lord Rama's time. And what else could they lack when Lord himself was there amidst them, taking care of all of them? Then Kagbhushundi, who is telling the story to Garuda, he is telling here, Jab te Ram pratap khagesa, Udit bhayau ati prabal dinesa, Puri prakas raheu tihu loka, Bahutin sukh bahutan man soka, Jinahi sok te kahau bakhani, pratham avidya nisanasani, agh uluk jeh tahan lukane, काम क्रोध कैरव सकुचाने. His poet is playing a little bit with the words here. He is saying that when Lord Rama became the king, when his rule was there, as if his glory rose like a strong sun. Because of that, all the worlds, they were full of light. But because of this, even though many became happy, but there were some who also were not happy. So he is saying that I want to describe those who had sorrow in their hearts because of Lord Rama's rule. So first is avidya, the ignorance. It is said the ignorance is like night, and that was gone. So ignorance had a sorrow in her heart. Then he is saying agha uluka. Uluka is the owl, O-W-L, owl, and agha is sin. So as if sins, like owls who cannot stand the daytime, who like the nighttime, they tried to hide here and there, and they were in a very difficult situation. Also, I told you about these 4 factors: karma, guna, kala, swabhava, because of which persons attain sorrows. Even they were not having much joy in their hearts. Then he is saying, matsar, man, moho, mad, chora. Matsar is the jealousy, mana is the pride, moha is the delusion, mada is sort of egoistic nature. They also did not have much sway over the people. But on the other hand, dharma, jnana, the knowledge, viveka, the discrimination, these were like the lotuses which had plenty of opportunities to bloom. So poet here is saying, यह प्रताप रवि जाके उर्जब करई प्रकाश, पछले बाण ही प्रथम जे कहे ते पावहि नास. When this sun, which is described as the Lord Rama or his glory, when this sun rises in somebody's heart and lights up somebody's heart, then the characteristics which are said later on, basically the positive characteristics like knowledge, dharma, discrimination, detachment, happiness, contentment, all these are on the increase, while the others ones which were said earlier, all the negative ones like ignorance, the pride, jealousy, they are destroyed. Then once upon a time, Lord went into his garden. His brothers were with him, and also Hanumanji was with them. So they all were roaming around in the garden. They were very happy. At that time, 4 saints came. These saints are called Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara. So Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara. These 4 saints, they are said to be the firstborn in this creation. So they are considered the first creations in the whole universe. So they are the firstborn mental sons of creator Brahma himself. Brahmaji created the Shrishti, the creation, or people, to propagate the creation, to increase the creation, because that was his So you can say, well, that was his job. But these 4 sons of his, which were the first one, they had no interest whatsoever in pursuing the worldly matters at all. So they attained realization and they became extremely detached from everything else, to the extent that they assumed the bodies of 5-year-olds. It is said that they are still living in the same 5-year-old bodies. Their bodies do not change. So they live like small boys, very childlike nature. They are, even in the appearance, they look like children. Yet they are the ancient most. And they are revered by everybody wherever they go, because they are the great sages, even though they look like children. And so these 4 saints, they live without any clothes, as it is for a 5-year-old boy, there is no matter of shame, but they are anyway free from any idea of shame or respect or disrespect or that kind of thing. They have no other job but to either just meditate on the Lord, on their own glory, on their own selves, or they tell the stories of Lord to each other. So one of the brothers, these are 4 brothers, so one brother will become the speaker and all other 3 would listen, and like that would continue like that. That's how they spend their times. But in this case, because they heard Lord is here, they came to see Lord. So when Lord Rama saw them, देख राम मुनि आवत रश दंडवत कीन स्वागत पूछ पीत पट प्रभु बैठन के दीन. So Lord Rama, when he saw these sages coming, he became extremely happy. He immediately bowed down completely flat to all these 4 sages. And along with him, his 3 brothers, as well as Hanumanji, they bowed down to these sages. And Lord Rama, because he was in the garden, there was no other way to welcome them. He took his own cloth, his own uttariya, which he was wearing, the upper cloth of the body, and he put that on the ground for them to sit. So Lord is just showing by his own example that how to respect saints and sages. And Lord then very lovingly, he insisted that they please sit down, these sages. And he is saying, today, indeed, I am blessed. Because it is that just to have the company of you, one is able to get rid of all the sins. So it is somebody's great fortune that you give your darshan to them. And I'm very fortunate, I'm very blessed to have your darshan. And all these same words of the Lord, they are just looking at him incessantly. And they feel so much love. Lord, they have tears in his eyes, looking at the Lord, looking at his ways. And when Lord also looking at them, he also has tears in his eyes. And then these sages and saints, they start praising the Lord. They start singing the hymns to the Lord. And finally they say that, please give us your devotion, please give us your bhakti, that's the boon we want from you. And silently that is provided. It shows that even though they are Brahmagyani, these sages, they are men of knowledge, they don't lack anything. But yet the nature of devotion is such that one never thinks that I am devoted enough, and always seeks that may I be always devoted to you. That's why you will find in Manas that not only ordinary people seek the devotion, the boon of devotion, But even the greatest of the devotees, they are also seeking the boon of devotion from Lord. So, and then they take leave of the Lord. When they had gone, now Lord Rama is remaining with his 3 brothers and Hanumanji. So Bharata, he wanted to listen from the Lord a little bit more about saints and sages after these 4 great sages had visited them. But this is the characteristic of Bharata. He is always very hesitant to say something to the Lord, to ask something to Lord Rama. And but he has this in his heart that he wants to listen from Lord Rama. So he is looking at Hanumanji. Other brothers also had this desire, and they are looking at Hanumanji to seek his help, that he may intercede on their behalf to ask Lord. Hanumanji understood, Lord also understood, but he didn't say anything. He let Hanumanji speak. So Hanumanji spoke. Hanumanji bows down to Lord and said, "O Lord, Bharata wants to ask something, but he has a little bit hesitation, little bit diffident he is." So Lord Rama says that, "Oh Hanumanji, you know my nature. Is there any difference between Bharata and me? Is there anything which would be hidden which I know which from Bharata?" When Bharata heard that, he immediately falls down at the feet of the Lord Rama and said, "Look, by your grace, I have nothing, no sorrow, no delusion, nothing of that sort. No really question which is bothering me. But I just want to hear from your mouth the glory of saints and sages. I have heard you saying many times earlier. I have also heard that the glory of saints and sages is described in the scriptures. Yet I want to listen from your mouth again. And also I want to know that what are the characteristics of the saintly people, what are the characteristics of the wicked people also. So because once you know one and other, you can clearly differentiate who is a saintly person, who is a wicked person. So please tell in some detail, we want to listen from you." So Lord Rama then starts. He obliges them and he says, "Sant asantan ke asikarni, jim kuthar chandan acharni, काटई परसुमलय सुन भाई, निज गुण दे सुगंध बसाई." The conduct of saints and the wicked people, it is analogous to the sandalwood and the eggs. So eggs, you know, the machete kind of thing, and the sandalwood. So he's saying, look, X has the power to cut down a sandal tree, and that's what it does. But the sandalwood in turn, it instead of getting mad at X, it actually gives its own fragrance to the X, to the, you can say, machete. So it imparts its own virtue to the, and that is the differentiation between the wicked people and the saints, he's saying. This, I remember one story related to Paramahamsa Yogananji. There was some place that he was sitting and people were talking bad of him. And there were some disciples of Yogananji which were sitting with him, and they said, "Master, won't you respond? This is all slander. This is not truth. They are all spreading falsehood about you." And he said, "Well, My nature is like a rose. You can take a rose in your hand, either very softly, very gently, or you can just mash it. In either case, rose is going to provide the fragrance to the person, whether the person just destroys it or person handles it very tenderly. So he is describing the characteristics of the saints. So he is saying, Vishay alam pat seal guna kar, par dukh dukh sukh sukh dekhe par, sam abhut ripu mad viragi, lobha marash harash bhay tyagi, komal chit deenan par daya, मन बच क्रमम भगति अमाया, सब हिमान प्रद आप अमानी, भरत प्राण सम ममते प्राणी. So saints, he is saying, they do not hanker after pleasures. They do not hanker after sense enjoyments. And they are the mine of virtues. One of the things which you can recognize a saint by, that they become sorrowful seeing others sorrow, and they become happy when they see others happy. So their joy lies in others' joy. Their grief also lies in others' grief. They are even-minded, and they look nobody as their enemy. Free from ego and passion, they have given up greed, anger, the happiness arising out of the sense pleasures, and the fear. They are very soft-hearted. They have compassion in their heart. And in a very simple and straightforward way, they are devoted to me. They are in their thought, word, and deed. And he's saying they are the ones who will always give honor to others, but by themselves they seek no honors. Such abodes of tranquility, dispassion, humility, they are dear to me as Bharata himself. So for them, whether somebody praises them, somebody blames them, they are even-minded in both the situations. And they have a lot of devotion towards me. They are dear to me as my own life. These walking temples of virtues and embodiments of bliss. So this, like this, he is talking about the saintly persons. Then he is also talking about wicked persons in some detail. And this reminds me of a similar episode in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna is telling in 16th chapter, Daivi Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, the divine qualities and asuric qualities, demonic qualities. Guruji Paramahams Pragyananji recently, when he was in Texas in the month of September, he took a discourse, because in silence he was taking a written discourse sort of thing on these divine qualities. There are 26. So here Lord Rama is describing in the similar way the saintly characteristics and wicked characteristics. Then he is saying, now listen about the characteristics of the wicked people. One should never have company with them. One should never have association with them, because it is always painful, association with them. They have a lot of agony and sorrows in their hearts, because not only their own sorrows, but their sorrow starts when they see somebody else happy. When they see somebody else prosperous, that is enough for them to have sorrow in their hearts. They don't have to have any other suffering, just that somebody else is happy or prosperous, that itself is a matter of sorrow for them. Whenever they hear the bad qualities of others, they feel delighted. Then they feel as if they have attained some treasure. They just have enmity with whomever they feel like. There doesn't have to be any logic or reason or any particular thing must have happened. Even a person who does good to them, they could develop enmity to them also. Their whole life is never based upon truth. It's always a series of lies, falsehoods. Their whole appearance, their whole conduct is deceitful. They neither trust others nor they are trustworthy. They are malevolent by nature. They always seeking, their eyes are on others' wives, others' wealth. They take joy in slandering others. Lord Rama is saying that such vile and sinful men, they are like demons in human garb. Because they are infatuated, they have the malice towards others in their heart. They never like the company of saints and sages. They do not like the devotion to Lord. They do not like to hear the Lord's stories either. Just like the saints are the ocean of all the virtues, they are all ocean of all the vices. They are dull-witted and given to their desires. They are under the control of their desires. They make fun of God, saints, and scriptures. And they usurp others' wealth. Even though they do not trust anybody, they bear the malice towards others in general, but in particular, they are particular and have enmity towards saintly people. But on the outside, they will show as if they are such good people by talking very sweet words. And then he is saying that for these kind of people, I am like Kala Rupa. Kala Rupa tinke mein bhrata, subh aru asubh karma phal data, as bichari je param sayane, bhajahi mohi sansrut dukh jane, त्यागहि कर्म शुभा शुभदायक, भजहि मोहि सुर नर मुनि नायक. I become like Kala. Kala means death. They face me in the form of death. And I decide the results of their good and bad deeds. So Lord is karma phala data for everybody. He is the giver of the fruits of actions for all the people. But In that sense, he has been called an impartial judge. But he is also called love for the devotees. So you cannot have both things together. It becomes very difficult to see one who is love. He is ever forgiving. He never judges you. He never sees your fault. One who loves you, that's how one loves somebody. That if I see faults in somebody, if I judge somebody, then obviously I don't love. So Lord is love. But Lord is also the giver of the fruits of action. How these two things reconcile. And this has been something which many people have difficulty to understand. That Lord is an impartial observer. He gives the fruits of actions depending upon the kind of actions one person does. At the same time, he is love personified. So the one who loves the Lord, he finds the Lord as love itself. Those who do not, those who have indifference or even you can say, hate Lord, or they don't care, or they make fun of saints and sages and lords. For them, he becomes a karma phaladata. He becomes a judge. He becomes impartial observer. So he's saying that one who understands me like that, those who are wise people, they are always devoted to me, considering this world as full of sorrows. They do not depend upon their results of their karma for getting the happiness or sorrow. But instead, giving up all that, they are solely devoted to me. And he summarizes all these things in this one, which is a very famous verse in Manas. Parhit saris dharam nahi bhai, par pida sam nahi adhmai, nirnay sakal puran ved kar, kahyum tat janahi ko vidnar. There is no virtue like benevolence, and no meanness like oppressing others. This is the essence he is saying of scriptures. And it has always been taught in many other ways, like ahimsa paramo dharma. The ahimsa, which is non-hurtfulness, that is the supreme virtue. All others sort of fall within that framework. And then he is saying, Sunahutat maya krut gunaru dosh anek गुनी है उभय ना देखिए देखिए सो अविवेक. So he's saying, finally he describes the saintly qualities, wicked persons, characteristics. Then he's saying this whole world, this is a product of Maya, this product of ignorance. You will find the good things and bad things in here. You will find the saintly qualities and wicked qualities, wicked characteristics here. That is the nature of, that's the nature of Maya. But truly the biggest virtue is that one who does not see this duality, one who goes above this duality, that is the greatest virtue. So with this, we will complete the session, and if any questions or comments are there, please feel free to write in the chat window. I had one question in the email, so I'll read it out to you. It says, thank you for the beautiful classes. In the class narrative, the reunion of Lord Rama with Bharata was very intense. It seemed much more than the eagerly anticipated reunion of Lord Rama with Mother Sita. Could you comment on this a little bit? So this is a little bit difficult question, in the sense that it is true that in Manas particularly, the meeting of Rama and Bharata is described quite intensely. But on the other hand, the separation of Lord Rama and Mother Sita, that is described very, very intensely. And that has been described in multiple places. So it is difficult to say that, like, love is always incomparable. It's always very difficult to compare the love between two people, between two whose love is more than whom. But as far as Mother Sita is concerned, it is the time of separation that you see the emotions of Lord Rama. So when Mother Sita is abducted, that's the first time of separation. And he is so sorrowful that he is asking the animals, he is asking the trees, he is asking the leaves and the mountains, oceans, rivers, that have you seen Sita? He forget even that these are insentient beings and they can give no information, but he is in such a overrun with sorrow that he is asking everybody, everything, that have you seen Sita? Where is my Sita? In Manas it is not mentioned, but in some other Ramayana it is mentioned that he becomes even so angry at this thing that he says, he tells Lakshmana that I'll destroy all the three worlds if Sita is not returned to me right now. I can't live without her. And Lakshmana somehow tries to make sense to him and stops him from doing that. And then his lamentation continues whenever, with Lakshmana particularly, because he was the only one to whom he could share a little bit his sorrow, his feelings of the heart, but not everything. So when they are staying in the mountain, when there is a rainy season and Sugriva is not able to send the troops to search for Mother Sita, that description is pretty heart-touching, that he is describing his separation from Sita, that how everything which should have been a source of joy has turned out to be a source of pain for me in the absence of Sita. Then even when Hanumanji goes to look for Mother Sita, the message he gives, the same, that Lord Rama is saying that only my heart knows that how much pain and suffering I'm having in your absence, in separation of you. Everything which was a source of joy has turned to be a source of pain for me. But even if that pain if it is shared with somebody, that is lessened. But in this case, only my heart knows, and only you know that heart is with you. So whom should I share also? So like that. So you will find a lot of instances. It is true that the meeting with Mother Sita is not described as intensely, but his love for Mother Sita is without any question described in multiple places. And that has come out more in separation than in the meeting. So with this, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll conclude the class. With the closing prayers. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhave. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you all.